Iran just crossed every red line America ever drew, and the Pentagon has 72 hours to decide what happens next. At exactly 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time on a Tuesday that will be remembered for decades, classified signals intercepted by the National Security Agency triggered an immediate threat level Delta alert across 17 U.S. military installations in the Middle East. The message was unambiguous. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had activated launch protocols for its most advanced ballistic missile arsenal. 240 Shahab-4 and Emad missiles pre-positioned across 4 hardened underground silos stretching from Tabriz to Bandar Abbas. Not a drill, not posturing. Final preparation codes had been entered. The countdown had begun. The Secretary of Defense was pulled from a dinner with NATO allies. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs was already on a secure line to CENTCOM. And inside the Situation Room, satellite feeds showed something that made every general in the room go silent. The Iranians weren't bluffing. They hadn't bluffed in 30 years. They were moving. What happened in the next 72 hours would reshape the entire balance of power across the Middle East and force the United States military machine to execute the most complex preemptive defense operation in modern American history. This is how it unfolded. For 6 months, intelligence analysts at Langley had watched the warning signs accumulate with mounting dread. Iran's military spending had surged by $4.2 billion in a single fiscal quarter. Satellite imagery captured over 1,100 fuel truck convoys moving through the Zagros Mountains under cover of darkness. New tunneling activity, massive industrial-scale digging, had expanded Iran's underground missile network to an estimated 500 kilometers of reinforced concrete bunkers, 40 meters below the surface. Deep enough to survive a conventional strike, deep enough to laugh at anything short of a bunker buster dropped from a B-2 at altitude. The IRGC Aerospace Force, 15,000 personnel strong, had been operating on wartime footing since spring. Their commander, a man who had personally overseen every major missile test for the past decade, had stopped appearing in public. His disappearance from state television was the kind of signal that veteran CIA analysts recognized immediately. When the general goes underground, the missiles go up. What's your threat assessment? Type A, if you think Iran's arsenal represents an existential threat to U.S. assets in the region. Type B, if you think America's missile defense grid can absorb a full Iranian strike. Drop your answer in the comments. The results might surprise you. Iran's strategic calculation had been building for years. The IRGC leadership genuinely believed, that they had found the gap in America's armor. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group sat 340 miles off the coast of Oman. Impressive. Terrifying even with its 90 aircraft, its Aegis cruisers, its $13 billion price tag. But against 240 ballistic missiles launched simultaneously from 4 separate geographic vectors, even the most advanced naval defense system on Earth has a math problem. The Aegis combat system can track 900 targets and engage dozens simultaneously. But 240 inbound at Mach 3.5 across overlapping trajectories, with 40 decoy warheads mixed in. The Iranians had run the simulations. They believed they had found the number that broke the algorithm. The plan, as reconstructed by Pentagon analysts from intercepted communications, was devastating in its precision. Wave 1, 80 Emad ballistic missiles targeting the 5 major U.S. air bases across Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE. Wave 2, 60 Shahab-4s aimed at the Carrier Strike Group and its escort vessels. A $42 billion naval package floating in international waters. Wave 3, 100 cruise missiles and Shahed drones, the same platform that had torn through Ukrainian infrastructure, flooding the airspace with 800 simultaneous targets to overwhelm radar and exhaust interceptor stockpiles. Final wave, precision strikes on the Strait of Hormuz choke points, sealing 20% of the world's daily oil supply inside a burning bottle. The economic calculation alone was staggering. Successful strikes on those 5 air bases would kill an estimated 1,400 to 2,200 American service members. Damage to the carrier group, even partial, would represent the first successful strike against a U.S. Navy carrier in 80 years. The strait closure would detonate oil prices past $200 per barrel within 48 hours. Iran's supreme leadership had concluded that America would hesitate, would calculate the cost of full retaliation, would blink. They had made one catastrophic error in judgment, because what they didn't know, what their intelligence apparatus had catastrophically failed to detect, was that the United States had spent 18 months quietly pre-positioning the most concentrated defensive strike package since Desert Storm. And it wasn't sitting on carriers or in air bases. It was already inside Iran's defensive perimeter. Pentagon planners had gamed this scenario 847 times in classified war simulations running since 2019. They had a name for it: Operation Iron Ceiling. And unlike Iran's plan, Iron Ceiling didn't wait for missiles to launch. It aimed to destroy them before the first rocket motor ignited. At 12:23 a.m., 72 minutes after the NSA alert, the order went to 3 Ohio-class submarines patrolling beneath the Arabian Sea. Each submarine carried 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles, $2.1 million per round, GPS-guided, terrain following, flying at 550 miles per hour through radar-invisible flight paths. Combined payload: 462 missiles pre-programmed with the coordinates of every known Iranian missile silo, mobile launcher, and underground bunker entrance that 18 months of satellite surveillance had identified. The submarines had been holding those coordinates, engines silent, for 11 days. Simultaneously, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, $2.1 billion aircraft, the most survivable strike platforms on Earth, lifted off from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Each carried 4 GBU-57A/B massive ordnance penetrators. That's 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs designed specifically to punch through 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The B-2s flew in total radar silence. The Iranians' most advanced S-300 air defense systems, bought at enormous diplomatic cost from Russia, saw nothing, heard nothing. The bombers were ghosts. At 2:15 a.m., the F-35C squadrons launched from the Abraham Lincoln. 60 aircraft, each invisible to conventional radar, each loaded with precision-guided munitions, targeting Iran's radar installations, communications nodes, and air defense command centers. Their job was simple: blind Iran before the main event arrived. Sever every electronic nerve in the IRGC's integrated air defense system. Make the skies over Iran as dark and silent as deep water. What would you have done in the IRGC commander's position when the radar screens went dark? Comment below. Military history buffs, this is your moment. At 3:28 a.m. exactly, the Tomahawks arrived. 240 cruise missiles hit their targets within a 90-second window. The Fordow fuel enrichment facility, buried under 280 feet of mountain, declared impenetrable by Iranian state television 17 times. Absorbed 6 direct hits from massive ordnance penetrators. The mountain shook. Seismic sensors in Baghdad registered the detonations as a 4.2 magnitude earthquake. Secondary explosions inside the facility burned for 9 hours. The Natanz missile storage complex took 34 simultaneous Tomahawk strikes. Reinforced doors, rated to withstand 500-pound bombs, were hit with 2,000-pound JDAM guided munitions dropped from B-2s at 40,000 feet. The complex, which had stored 80 AMAD missiles pre-fueled and ready for launch, detonated in a chain reaction visible from 70 miles away. The fireball reached 3,000 feet. At Tabriz, where 60 mobile Shahab launchers had been dispersed across a 40-square-kilometer grid, a tactic designed to make targeting impossible, 38 were destroyed in the first wave. The remaining 22 attempted to launch. Of those, 19 missiles were intercepted by Patriot PAC-3 batteries operating from forward positions in northern Iraq, upgraded to the latest MSE configuration with a $4.3 billion improvement package delivered 6 months prior. 3 missiles got through. 2 hit empty desert, 1 hit a fuel depot outside Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. The explosion killed 4 maintenance personnel. It was the only American facility struck that night. The IRGC launched its drone swarm on schedule. 800 Shahed 136, rising in a mechanical storm from launch sites across southern Iran. On any other night, this would have been catastrophic. That night, the United States had deployed a system the Iranians hadn't known existed in operational form. A directed energy weapon platform, 2 units of it, mounted on modified Arleigh Burke destroyers. The system, $3.4 billion in development costs over 11 years, generated a focused beam that could engage 30 targets per minute at a cost of $9 per engagement. Against $50,000 drones, the math was grotesque. By 5 a.m., 634 drones had been killed for an energy cost equivalent to powering a suburban house for 6 months. The 166 remaining Shaheds hit the Aegis cruiser USS Leyte Gulf. 47 got through the close-in defense systems. 17 struck the hull. The ship did not sink. The Leyte Gulf had been operating with a skeleton crew of 120. The rest evacuated per pre-positioned contingency orders issued 36 hours earlier, when satellite imagery first showed the drone swarm preparations. 11 sailors were killed. 43 were wounded. The ship burned for 4 hours before damage control parties brought it under control. By 6:30 a.m., the first phase of iron sealing was complete. Damage assessment satellites were already transmitting. Of Iran's 240 pre-positioned ballistic missiles, 218 were confirmed destroyed, either in their silos, on mobile launchers, or during failed launches. 14 had been fired and intercepted. 8 had been fired and missed. The launch infrastructure, the tunnels, the hardened facilities, the fuel depots, was estimated at 73% destroyed. Iran had spent $14 billion building that arsenal over 20 years. It was gone before sunrise. But iron sealing wasn't over, because the Pentagon had planned for the second problem: retaliation. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthi forces in Yemen, militia groups across Iraq and Syria, represented 180,000 fighters with access to an estimated 150,000 rockets and missiles. This was the swarm that could not be bombed into silence in a single night. This was the Hydra. And the head-cutting phase of iron sealing had anticipated it. In the 12 hours following the initial strikes, U.S. Special Operations Forces executed 34 simultaneous raids across Iraq and Syria, targeting IRGC Quds force, command nodes, and weapons storage. Each raid was 12 minutes. In and out, specific, surgical, devastating. $870 million in pre-positioned weapons caches were destroyed. 22 senior Quds force commanders, men who controlled the distribution networks, the financing, the communications, were captured or killed. The proxy network's nervous system was severed. Support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up. This kind of deep tactical breakdown takes 40 hours of research, and you won't find it anywhere else. By the time the sun rose over Tehran on the second morning, Iran's supreme leadership faced a situation their wargaming had never modeled. The missile force was gone. The proxy command network was shredded. The drone arsenal had been met with technology they hadn't known existed. And the United States had taken exactly 11 killed, 43 wounded, and 1 damaged warship out of assets worth $200 billion and personnel totaling 45,000 service members in the theater. The casualty ratio was not a military outcome, it was a message, because that is what American military power, properly positioned, properly armed, and properly led, can achieve. Not the power of individual heroism, though there was plenty of that. Not the power of luck, the power of preparation. 18 months of satellite surveillance, $4.3 billion in Patriot upgrades, 11 years of directed energy development, 847 war simulations. The unsexy, invisible, unglamorous work of professional military planners who understood that the best battle is the one that ends before it truly begins. Iran's leadership had calculated that America would hesitate, that political division, that war fatigue, that the memory of Iraq and Afghanistan would slow the decision cycle, muddy the targeting, blunt the response. They were not wrong about America's politics. They were catastrophically wrong about America's military. The Strait of Hormuz never closed. The carrier group never took a hit. The 5 air bases absorbed 0 strikes. And the world's oil markets opened the next morning down 3%, not up 200%, because traders understood in the first hour what the satellite images confirmed by the second, that the threat had been eliminated, not escalated. Was this outcome a demonstration of deterrence working, or proof that deterrence had already failed? Was striking first the right call, or did it set a precedent that every adversary will now calculate against? Leave your answer in the comments. This is the debate that military strategists will argue for the next 20 years, because that is the lesson that every potential adversary must internalize. Not that America wants war. America has never wanted war, but that the United States military, when pushed to the edge of every red line, when confronted with a threat to its people and its allies, does not send warnings. It sends steel. The oceans belong to those who are willing to defend them. The skies belong to those who built the aircraft that no radar can see. And the peace, fragile, imperfect, contested peace, belongs to those who paid for it in decades of preparation, in billions of defense dollars, in the quiet professionalism of men and women who trained for exactly this moment and performed exactly as trained. To every adversary watching today from Beijing, from Pyongyang, from Moscow, the lesson is written in the satellite images that came back from Iran that morning. 218 destroyed missile silos, a fireball visible from 70 miles, and 11 American dead, not because American lives don't matter, but because American preparation ensured that 11 was the number, not 1,400. The machine worked. It always works when America remembers to build it, fund it, and trust the men and women who operate it. Don't miss what comes next. We're tracking the full aftermath, the diplomatic fallout, and Iran's next move. Subscribe now so you don't miss the follow-up analysis. Hit the bell. We'll see you in the next one.